I've had this recurring feeling that when Warframe is about to how 1999 made. If you're just joining us, then welcome to the Warframe is about to change. And since its announcement, I've felt that this change has broken through to the broader gaming space, growing louder and louder as time passes. And as we approach its release, perhaps we are seeing the beginnings of a shift in how gamers see Warframe. But to convey the potential scope of this change, we must cover a few aspects of character, appeal, and perspective. Over the years, Warframe has become something of a known quantity, and being one can overwhelmingly be a good thing. It means that almost everyone knows of or is at least somewhat aware of Warframe in their periphery, which translates to a constant stream of impressions, interest, and installations. Warframe doesn't wield a massive marketing budget like other games do, but it has spread nevertheless, slowly but surely worming its way into the eyes and ears of just about every single person within gaming. Warframe has garnered its rightful seat in the history of games, and through its developers' efforts, earned a steady reputation. A reputation that pays its dividends, keeping the lights on as its caretakers drive the game ever forward. Through its persistent quality and efforts to reach out to players, through word of mouth, through recommended videos, special events, friends, streamers, your assimilation is inevitable. Warframe is a fixture in this industry, a beacon of diligent and earnest development that draws gamers in year after year. Even if you, watching this video, have never played Warframe before, I know that you've been exposed to it again and again. And no matter how many times you resist, one day, this game will finally get you too. And yet, being a known quantity can also come with a slight hiccup. All live service games have to deal with many struggles to stay afloat, but I want to talk about one in particular. One that I feel especially impacts Warframe, that of first impressions and their lasting effect. There are several factors in how these first impressions are formed: the quality of story and gameplay, the clarity and ethics of the game's monetization, the rhythm, flow, and lulls of the new player experience, and its marketing and public perception. And in my opinion, that presents a constant, ever-changing challenge. For all the good that being a known quantity brings, it also carries a consequence. First impressions leave their mark, for better and worse. They are as powerful as they are irrevocable. They can solidify to an exceedingly stubborn degree. To tie this to an in-game example, just consider how many players still don't play Railjack because of their initial bad experience years ago, despite the overhauls and improvements given to it since then. For a game as old as Warframe, being a known quantity can also mean that for as many as there are who cherish the game, just as many have, for one reason or another, bounced off from it. An unsatisfying new player experience, a difference of taste for its style and features, or even simply a lack of interest in its outward appeal. Over time, impressions both positive, neutral, and negative become the foundation of public opinion. And that, I believe, influences the scope and depth of gamers' perception and interest in trying the game. Warframe is gaming's best kept secret, and in large part because while many know of it, few ever really take the time to give it a closer look. When a game becomes a known quantity, it can be hard for it to be given a second chance. But for a live service, I feel it's essential to challenge any assumptions, to combat any form of stagnation. So, as we approach Warframe 1999, I ask you to consider, what methods are most effective in renewing interest? How does one break the mold of a public opinion formed through the gradual build of first impressions? How does a game like Warframe reach out to those who have dismissed it from the outset or who have quit in years prior? It is precisely these questions that led me to the belief that Warframe is primed. Primed for a perspective shift in the eyes of a broader gaming community of whom many have overlooked it. And that begins here. Every live service game faces a choice in what kind of presence they offer the gaming world. How do they represent their core features and stylistic qualities to draw in prospective players? Different marketing approaches appeal to different groups of people, and we can generalize those in two forms: broad and niche appeal. It's not some tiny indie game, but through its many eras, I'd say Warframe definitely leans toward the niche. The hook of being a stealthy space ninja in a gritty rendering of a sci-fi world. An eclectic fusion of genres set against the backdrop of open-world landscapes, space battles, and epic wars. Then fantasy and surreal elements coming to the forefront. And now, a return to a time familiar, yet changed. But throughout it all, Warframe is consistent in one thing. It keeps challenging itself to be different. Not just for difference's sake, but for artistic, risky experimentation to its betterment. And it was here, with this observation, that I made a theory. How the niche nature of Warframe's appeal has influenced its public opinion, and one factor of why some seem to overlook it. How 1999 may be just the thing to break through and draw a broader appeal without sacrificing the unusual and niche qualities that make Warframe interesting. For that, let's look at Warframe's outward representation at the character level. Warframes. These silent, faceless warriors. They emanate mystery and intrigue, awe and power. A perfect match to the atmosphere of the game. To my point, consider there is a specificity inherent to their design that aligns them more to the niche than the broad. And in nicheness, there is a limit to what is communicated to players who are on the outside looking in. Warframe has its unique charm and drawing power, of which I am the utmost fan of, but consider that perhaps that comes at a cost in surface level clarity and relatability. To be clear, I don't present this as a negative thing. Appeal and quality are independent of each other, and there can be a special kind of wonder in the allure of mystery that surrounds the kind of characters whose existence leaves us with more questions than answers. And gaming in particular seems like it has always been uniquely kind to these niche varieties relative to other mediums. And perhaps that is because gaming has been a niche thing due to how young it is as a whole. I feel that games are in this weird transitionary place between being this fringe niche novelty and being this busy mainstream intersection. And I can only hope that as time progresses, it continues to hold on to the bizarre, the mystery, and the niche as it navigates whatever era of its creative and industrial landscape to come. To me, games like Warframe give me hope that the niche and peculiar can and will break through and achieve tremendous success. Understand that in the end, these two forms of appeal are simply markers of two different ways media can communicate to its potential audiences through their choice of characters. I propose to you that there is a spectrum of appeal that, not always, but can often coincide with how close to human a character presents and acts. We are, after all, social creatures with an innate desire to connect to something, someone that resembles ourselves. The more expressive, relatable, and understandable, the broader the appeal. The more enigmatic, mysterious, and ephemeral, the more niche. And to that end, Warframes have a kind of alienness to them. Don't get me wrong, I personally love it, but I do feel that for some others, that can generate a barrier. Not an insurmountable one, but a barrier nonetheless. Consider how Warframe's marketing through these vessels communicates itself to prospective players. It certainly delivers on cool factor, gameplay, and excitement. but I've noticed it's somewhat harder to showcase some of its narrative appeal without spoiling its most important early game quest. Now, I'm not advocating for having that certain reveal be publicized for the sake of drawing more prospective players through Warframe's marketing. Believe me, I understand the value and import that reveal has, and how much it is enriched by having it obscured to a certain point. Nor am I suggesting in even the slightest fashion that having Warframes be the forefront of Warframe's marketing is a bad thing either. They are, of course, what makes Warframe Warframe. That appeal is not ineffective, it just caters to a particular audience. What I am saying is simply that there is a power in connection and in strong characterizations. What I am saying is that Warframe may just be able to have the best of both worlds. Niche and broad appeal brought together through Warframe 1999, and more specifically through its proto-frames. Here's my hypothesis, quick and simple. These proto-frames have an ability to convey some of the game's narrative and character aspects in a way that Warframes can only do so in part. And that is because they can communicate more directly. They can emote, express a greater degree of personality, offer bits of exposition and of their character arc, and most of all, speak. In my opinion, these things can have a notable effect on how much information Warframe can offer up front to prospective players. Because people are drawn to story. Story is drawn to structure, and structure is drawn to character. The more understandable, relatable, and readable a character presents in acts, the greater the extent of its drawing power. A good example of this, I feel, is how much more of a personality Gauss Prime has relative to Warframes prior. And speaking of primes, another example would be Ballas's narration over the Prime trailers. His voice gives context and drives a certain feeling to enhance the quality and hook of the trailer.
Let us have monsters.
Not only that, but through a concrete character that guides a player's experience, one can more easily ground themselves and acclimate to more complicated and niche aspects of a game's narrative. This is why I've always appreciated Ordis as a character and wish he had a larger role in the new player experience, to ease the player into the sometimes information overloading whirlwind of Warframe's terminology, concepts, and world building. In this moment, just the right ingredients are here to kickstart a massive chemical reaction. The age and perception of Warframe among the general gaming community. Competitor games stumbling in the shadow of Warframe's standard. The vastly improved new player experience compared to even a year ago. And mixed with a hefty dose of 90s nostalgia, the human appeal of proto-frames. But it is not enough to simply broaden one's appeal. Marketing is the hook, not the meat. Appeal is just one of many factors. Gameplay, story, and the new player experience must follow through to earn more than just that initial burst of attention. And right now, there is no other feature that I feel may better become a major linchpin of the 1999 update than its upcoming companionship system. It has incredible potential, but I do wonder how it will be implemented, maintained, and expanded in the future with even more potential proto-frames. How in-depth is this system? How does it bleed into other aspects of the game? Of particular note, I don't think I've ever really seen a live service go all out in trying this kind of system. It's always something that seemed more easier done in single-player narrative games. So I'm interested in seeing how the devs tackle some of the challenges that come putting this kind of system into this kind of game. How flexible are our choices? Can we only romance one proto-frame at a time? Do we have to break up with one in order to court another? If we do break up with one of the hex to romance a second, can we break up with that second and re-romance the first partner we originally took? Can we choose to make a close platonic bond with our partner of choice instead of having the end result be romantic? I assume there will be some kind of neutral and positive standing track to understand how our progress is with each of the hex. But might there also be a negative standing and consequences mechanic like the original syndicates have? Imagine if you broke up with your hex partner and instantly converted them to a deep negative standing, and as a consequence, they hunted you down Syndicate Death Squad style in your 1999 mission.
Nah, I'm not gonna let this slide that easily.
That wasn't a serious suggestion, but if instead we had some kind of snarky, tense dialogue with a hex proto-frame in negative standing with us, that might be kind of interesting and fun to explore. And I'd like to hear from you. What version of the system do you want? What kind of things do you want to see or to avoid with it? These proto-frames hold the key to changing how gamers see Warframe. Disrupting the familiar image of our masked Warframes with a fresh set of faces, personalities, and even connection is sure to be a shock to those who've long kept away from the game and have held this older status quo in their mind. To put it simply, people love a good twist. With every new player that tries the game specifically because of 1999's proto-frames, they will have expectations born from the outreach Warframe has given them, not to mention the fresh memory of Baldur's Gate 3 and the high bar it sets. People who have dismissed this game prior may now try it out specifically for that feature. You have people's attention, digital extremes. Now comes the question of whether or not you can satisfy it. I never hold expectations, but I am optimistic. Over the course of making these observations, I came to believe that 1999 might just be the most disruptive update to the old growth of Warframe's first impressions that has accumulated over the years. Games that remain stagnant inevitably decay and fall out from the gaming world, but Warframe is anything but that. For any game that settles on a static resting point, as it reaches out to more and more people, it will encounter diminishing returns as each impression is less effective than the last. So a first impression that fails to convert to an installation or invested player will invariably lead to future impressions failing for that particular person or group. That is, unless you do something big to change that perspective. When done right, Subversion can be a potent, powerful catalyst. After seeing its marketing or quitting during older, less polished versions of its new player experience or the game thereafter, there is a plethora of gamers out there who have the potential to dig deeper into Warframe upon returning. And if you take something people think they know and surprise them with something else, something better than their assumption, it may be just enough to disturb their original first impression of the game and once more give it a second chance. And Warframe has been doing this since the beginning. The Second Dream, Plains of Eidolon, Empyrean, The New War, Duviri Paradox, reinventing itself, each time striving for something better, interesting, and worthy of your time. Each time forcing players to reconsider what their perception of Warframe is, and as a consequence, reconsidering if Warframe is worth their time. Even when they stumble, like in the case of the Empyrean update, the game's developers acknowledge their mistakes, fix issues, and respond to community feedback to make these updates not just simply subversions, but worthwhile additions to the game. That is why I say Warframe can have the best of both worlds. The enigmatic and ephemeral allure of Warframes, the gritty and relatable humanity of proto-frames. Niche and broad appeal tethered together by over a decade of experience, passion, and care for you, the player. There are few greater tools in storytelling than perspective. And once more, Warframe is about to change how you see it. 1999 hasn't even released yet, but already I see a wave of new players and hype rising to meet it. To what extent will 1999 reach out into the broader gaming space, I cannot say definitively. And like most things, the hype will have its shelf life. But whether you are among this community's elderly or young, returning player or brand new, one thing is for sure. Warframe will always keep changing your perspective of what you think it is, and that is one of many reasons that makes it worth paying attention to. If you're just joining us, then welcome to the